Mark Lukach says his relationship with his wife, Giulia, began as a modern fairy tale. They met during the first week of college and began dating just a month later.
It really felt pretty effortless, incredibly fun. We had a great time together in college. She was working hard and doing these amazing internships over the summer, and I was, doing my thing, trying to figure out what I was going to do. But I think it was pretty early on, even within the first few months, that we got a sense that we might want to be together, forever.
That's Lukach, who is a school teacher by trade, but recently wrote a memoir called My Lovely Wife in the Psych Ward. He says after getting married, moving to California, and working for 3 years, his wife landed a great new job. And that's when he noticed some changes in his wife's mental state.
The job she had really been looking forward to was for an awesome company. She was so excited. But even from the first day, there was just this hesitation and this lack of confidence that I'd never seen from her before. She'd always been so successful in her career endeavors, whether they were in college or beyond. But there was an insecurity that I'd never seen, and it started to manifest where she'd get to work and she'd have trouble writing a pretty basic email. She'd call me for help to try to craft it or email it for editing, and we were talking like 2 sentences, just like checking in with her boss, and that would be something that she would spend hours of time on. And so I knew that wasn't typical, right? Like she'd always been a perfectionist and wanting to do well, but this was the next level. At home, she didn't have much of an appetite. I cooked dinner and she'd sit there and just kind of poke at her food. And then her mind was racing so much that she had a hard time falling asleep at night. And that's where it really became a real problem, because she'd go from restless nights to maybe only sleeping a few hours to completely not sleeping at all and just spending the entire night awake trying to sleep, but just kind of getting more and more worked up by her anxiety around how she was doing at her job. And eventually it became what to me felt like a crisis situation, because she started to have some hallucinations where she was hearing things and believing things that weren't real.
Concerned, Lukach and his wife visited a doctor who prescribed Giulia some antidepressants.
We sort of were like, okay, I guess we're not going to take these. Giulia's not depressed. So I got up, and when she got the pills, she said, maybe take the pills, like hide them somewhere. I was sort of like, why? Like, what are you talking about? And she sort of joked, like, because you never know. Maybe I'll take them all if I'm so depressed. And then the next morning, after spending a night trying to get her to sleep, I woke up late. I was rushed. It was kind of the frantic morning thing, and I completely forgot about the pills because I didn't think it was a big deal. And Giulia left them out, like they were left out on the table. And when she got up to get herself ready for work, she ended up calling in sick and just kind of fixating on that bottle of medicine and actually really thinking she was going to take it all. But before she did, she called her mom, who was in Italy. She got on the computer and Skyped with her, and she told her mom how she was feeling, and her mom basically wouldn't let her hang up. And she sat with her on the phone for 6 hours, just waiting until I got home from work so that I could, in fact, go and hide the medication.
Lukach says this incident was a wake-up call, and it wasn't long before he was taking his wife to the emergency room.
I didn't really know the medical terms for what was going on with her, but once she started to talk about how she was basically stuck and never going to get better and wasn't worth trying to help, that sounded to me like this whole thing was scary, but that was where I was like, okay, this is serious. She could be dangerous. And I had never thought that, like, my wife would be a potential threat to herself. And so I had to grapple with that, like, here she is, this woman I love might not be safe. So I had to take her to the emergency room, and they agreed. They admitted her in the psych ward, and she was in there for a full 23 days.
While his wife was in the psych ward, Lukach's life became a constant struggle to cut through the red tape of patient confidentiality.
I didn't know what the rules were. And so Giulia's parents had, in an emergency, flown in from Europe to try to help her out. And so when we took her to the emergency room, it was actually 4 of us. It was me, Giulia, and both of her parents. And we were kind of on hold in the emergency room for, I don't know, less than like 6, maybe even 8 hours until they could find a different hospital where they had a bed for her to stay. So we were just kind of waiting. And when they did find that, it was all of a sudden like everything was moving 100 miles an hour, where they took her, they rushed her across the city in an ambulance. Her mom went with her in the ambulance, but we had driven there, obviously. So me and her dad took the car. We had to deal with parking. And by the time we got to the hospital, Giulia had already being processed by the psych ward. And they asked, who can we talk to? And Giulia was sitting there with her mom. So she pointed her and said, you can talk to her. So when I got there, they wouldn't really engage with me much because Julia had not granted them permission to talk to me.
This was a bigger problem than it might seem because Giulia's mother speaks English as a second language. Her native Italian wasn't going to help her understand medical lingo in an American hospital. So, without permission for the doctors to speak to Lukach, much of the vital information was hidden behind a language barrier.
I had to basically spend the first few days when I was visiting Julia trying to delicately convince her to sign a piece of paper that granted the hospital permission to talk to me. And this is meanwhile while she's like completely worked up in her psychosis and agitation, and that was so frustrating. And I get it. Like, I understand why these laws are in place because the mentally ill have been so horribly treated throughout history, right? And it's only been in the last few generations that there's the introduction of dignity in this type of patient care. But that kind of one-size-fits-all rule set is really difficult for family members to navigate because we don't know this stuff, right? Like, we don't know that, you literally have to be there if someone's not there to sign off for you to talk to them. And it was just so frustrating and really, really hard to be patient with the system because I wanted to support it. I wanted to be working with them and allied with them, but I felt like they were keeping me at arm's length.
This frustration and others like it took a toll on Lukach. His wife was in the psych ward for 23 days, but her recovery took almost a full year. Every day was a struggle to keep her safe and secure while living his own everyday life. Lukach says during this state of being a constant caregiver, he struggled to get the necessary support for his own well-being.
There's social workers. This is the person whose kind of role is to help the person who's in the hospital with the outside world. So like if they have a job issue, they might be the one who communicates with their job or to be the person who communicates with family. So I was able to talk to the social worker, and she was doing her best to be helpful, but she was clearly there to support Julia. Her job wasn't to take care of me, and I needed someone who was going to be able to take care of me just because this was so traumatizing.
So eventually, Lukach says he was forced to seek his own mental care program, which didn't come easy.
I called my insurance provider the day Julia was hospitalized because I wanted to talk to someone for my mental health. But unfortunately, they were only willing to give me 30 minutes of therapy a month, which just felt ridiculous to me, right? Like total inadequate support. So I ended up paying out of pocket to meet with a therapist. And that was huge, not just for me taking care of myself, but also for really helping me know what to expect, like learn some of the terminology. I could ask her the questions that maybe the social worker or nurses weren't able to answer.
Giulia continued to struggle for months with what doctors have diagnosed as bipolar disorder and depression, but eventually did recover. But that doesn't mean Lukach's burden was lifted simply because his wife was better.
It was actually when we came out of the episode that things got difficult for us as far as our relationship was concerned, because I was kind of at like caregiver's fatigue at that point. I was just so exhausted by almost a year of taking care of Julia in this way. And I was needing a lot of care for me, right? And I kind of needed her to be able to understand why I needed some support. Julia, on the other hand, was like, this was the worst year of my life. I just kind of want to have fun. Like, I don't want to deal with you having these pent-up feelings of frustration or sadness or whatever. And looking back, I totally get where both of us were coming from, but it put us in really different worlds.
Lukach says the journey to getting back on the same page wasn't easy on him or his wife.
For some reason, couples therapy was really hard for us. I think it's also because it cost us a lot of money. Again, we were not getting insurance reimbursement for it. So what we did is I started to write. I was writing about the experience, and I found that to be really therapeutic because I felt this really, really intense need for validation and acknowledgement of what the year had been like for me. I think that Julia had been so consumed by her illness that she had really not much of an understanding of what the caregiving experience was. And so I was writing to her for her to be able to see my point of view and hopefully create some more dialogue and some more ways to support each other. And it was hard. I'd sit there and write, and it was evolving that maybe this might be something I would try to publish. But basically it was write a piece or a chapter or whatever and send it to Julia for her to read. And then she would read it, and then we'd talk about it, and she'd give me some feedback on what was hard for her to read and what was important for her to read, and that it almost became like the book was our couples therapy.
Mark Lukach's memoir, My Lovely Wife in the Psych Ward, is available now. For more information about all of our guests, visit our site at viewpointsonline.net. Our show is written and produced by Evan Rook. Studio production is done by Sean Waldron and Jason Dickey. Our executive producer is Reed Pence. I'm Marty Peterson.
At the beginning of the school year, moms and dads have high hopes to have a better morning routine, like lay out clothes the night before, wake up earlier, and make breakfast every day. To which online Mom Truths personalities Kat and Nat say,
"Yeah, right. How about a little reality here? Kat and I have 7 kids between us, and you know those school year resolutions?
You know, there's a survey from Nutri-Grain that shows 84% of parents make school year resolutions, and more than half of us break them within a few months.
But it's okay if your back-to-school resolutions fall flat, because Nutri-Grain gives you the energy to keep going.
So what does your real morning look like? Share your back-to-school morning mishaps and triumphs with us on social at #RealMorning.
Nutri-Grain comes with real fruit, 8 essential vitamins and minerals, and 8 grams of soft whole grains. It's a satisfying, efficient, portable breakfast bar for your time-compressed morning. Share your stories with Kat and Nat at #RealMorning.
The race is on to enhance the success of treatments for cancers of the pancreas, bladder, and breast. Rexon Pharmaceuticals is studying new compounds that may selectively kill cancer cells in combination with other therapies while leaving healthy cells alone, according to Rexon CEO Peter Szostak.
We believe a new class of therapies could sharpen the attack on cancer cells. We're studying 2 compounds, RX-317 and RX-5902, that have shown promise in clinical trials and that can work in tandem with existing approaches for particularly hard-to-treat cancers.
Rexon is targeting metastatic pancreatic cancer and advanced bladder cancer with its compound RX-3117 and triple-negative breast cancer with its compound RX-5902. The company is currently recruiting patients for clinical studies to investigate how its compounds work in pancreatic and breast cancer. To find out more, visit Rexon.com.